Our topic of research was the future of the underground transportation of London post the COVID-19 pandemic. So we're gonna start with a bit of background research that we did. So up until the COVID-19 pandemic, London was a city largely dependent on its public transportation systems. But since April 2020, people have started avoiding using the public transport infrastructure in the city due to concerns about their health and safety. So currently the public transport of London is facing a 67% drop in the use compared to 2019. And in addition, remote working is becoming the norm for most workers in London, with 57% of Londoners currently working remotely and 63% of all businesses offering flexible workspace policies. So all of this leads us to question, how will the public transport of London be reformatted after the pandemic? And can we imagine a reprogrammed underground network for the city? So here you can see in the bottom a little bit, this is the site that we chose, is Zone 1 of London. It's the most central part. And the scale of the site that we chose is 5 by 9 kilometers.
Like how Lena mentioned, there is a lot of people in London have this fear of being infected by the virus through public transport. So the map on your right would actually, it's a survey that was done that was done to see how people reacted to COVID-19, and like most of the people, almost 70% of the people thought they'll get COVID-19 on public transport. And also we looked at what sort of traffic that goes. London Underground is one of the main public transport networks in the city, and we looked at what sort of traffic that moves through the underground, and we noticed that the Victoria line, Central line, and the Jubilee line are three of the main lines that are always used with the highest amount of traffic. But like Lena mentioned, because of the reason that people are moving into more remote working conditions and having fear of getting COVID-19 through public transport, these numbers will be drastically reduced, and there will be some lines that will have lower usage.
So this sort of next section would introduce the opportunities that we're seeing across our extracted information. So based on some stats, right now 57% of people living in London are currently working remotely, while 68 out of business in the UK are flexible working working space policy, and 73% of people in the UK will consider flexible working to be the new normal. So this kind of leads us into what the TfL city planning did in London, and one possible outcome of the COVID-19 pandemic is a remote revolution, or what we call our project the remote revolution, where technology will change the way people live, work, and travel. And then this analysis in the map kind of proposes how the London Transit has different transportation systems to support the current movement of people and traveling without using subway. And from here on, our proposal becomes of what could become of the tube station. What has it become the tube station?
A demographic for transportation networks. And we came up with the conclusion that our proposal was to supplement a system that would cater to these three case studies in particular, which is dealing with Paddington, Holborn Station, and Waterloo Station. In this particular case study, we started mapping typical bike routes as an interconnected network. And we also tried to find locations where there would be critical stations for bikes of interest. So these start to populate a density map that shows connections between also relevant other means of transport, which relates to bus stops. From there, we tried to diverge into the routes where we found the bus routes, and we tried to connect means of the tube stations being a part of this network as well. We looked at the three case studies that showed that there was some relevant significance between ways in which we could improve through our proposal, which is hydroponic farming. Now, the reason why we chose this particular proposal and for these 3 case studies is because, one, we would be able to supplement and provide through vertical gardening and hydroponic farming, cafes, restaurants, pubs, a lot of the resources that they use to supplement a lot of their clientele and the everyday commuter. So at the same time, this proposal provides that there are some benefits where it uses 99% less of the land use dedicated to that, which is already critical for London, which is a very dense city. And at the same time, we're using 70% less water. And at the same time, we can also provide faster support by delivery means, by using the transportation system, where it takes usually 4 hours from a typical garden to transport a lot of their products to supermarkets, pubs, and whatnot. And we would significantly try to reduce this through the transportation network.
So here you can kind of see the layout of our virtual room, how we have organized everything. So over the map of the site that you see on the bottom, we have overlaid some of the main components of our research, which are the bus stations, then the subways stations and transportation system, and the bike routes, and how all of these things influence our decision to make this proposal. And the other boxes that we're going to zoom into right now, they're the 3 case studies that we're going to talk about. They're pretty similar, so we're just going to go in depth of just one of them. So the first one that we're going to look at is Waterloo Station. The reason we chose this specific area to be our case study is because of the diversity of different site uses that we see here. So on this map, you can kind of see the different establishments that are located around this site. And due to the numerous tech offices and also supermarkets and local eateries, we decided that this specific station would be a good example to show how different tech industries can enhance this business of underground hydroponic farming, and then this technology could move to the underground to develop these farms, and then from these farms back to the consumer in this area.
Yeah, so this is Paddington Station. Again, we are allocating specific sort of areas, and then this sort of area in this site usage mostly for its green space. Now going down the video, the main top layer will be the bike layer. And as we start zooming in, we can see this sort of radiuses that tell the radius of how long, what are the elements that would get affected by this sort of local food production, underground food production. According to some percentages, we have if London needs to, in order for London to be self-sustainable, it would need to be 30%. It would need to increase its by 30% in its local food production. This layer just overlaps bus stations and bike stations. And then you can see the correlation between all the forms of transit. This one's just the site usage. And going down, you have your bus stations along with your subway and bike stations. And this last bottom layer has all the proximity lines between all the stations. in each sort of transportation system that we have implemented. And as you can see, it's really broad. And how would this relate within the city, and the amount of transportation options that London already has, even if we decide to do something with the subway.